Well, greetings and a hearty shalom to you, Jeffrey Seif here, for another edition of what I am calling DeSeifering. Of course, it's a play on words. My last name is Seif. Of course, decipher means to unpack. And deciphering the world affords me the opportunity to look at issues and weigh in on them. Every time I've done it so far, without exception, I always get in trouble. If you want to talk about what's happening in the world, you do engage politics, and there's varying opinions. And every time I do one of these, I get a backstream correction from well-intended people, by the way. I'm not mad at individuals that want to take me to task. I've been in ministry leadership now for 40 years. And you do kind of get jostled around a little bit. It's just the nature of the industry, I suppose. And if I jump in and say something political, then I get in trouble. Of course, the temptation is to just talk about all that stuff. You know, certainly we have a president who's very flamboyant, who makes a lot of decisions, who says things, and he provides fodder for those that want to lurch. And so there's no lack of discontent over something he says or something he allegedly does. And even if it's something more pedestrian, mundane, individuals have different ideas about what's really happening behind the news. I don't think in a variety of ways most people really even know what they're talking about. People get sound bites on the news, whether it's Fox News or CNN, MSNBC, something in between. And it's what do we feel about what we're hearing from these purveyors of source material. And it's not even primary source. It's analysis coming from a particular perspective. How do we feel about it? And everybody jumps in. And so I have been cautioned by well-intended people. Now, Jeffrey, you know, you want to make friends, and you just don't want to step into that arena. Well, I disagree. And, you know, I've had some time to reflect on it. And again, I'm pushing back, you know, against well-intended friends who think it's not good of you, Jeffrey. You're a religious leader. It's not prudent to enter into the public domain and plant your feet somewhere. That's problematic. I'll tell you what's more problematic to my way of thinking. What's problematic is that people that are religious, that are so sensitive, if someone represents something that doesn't comport with their sensibilities, they just blow a gasket. And what it is individuals that are like that can only associate with a narrow band of people that think just like them. And if you think just like me, then we can be friends because, you know, we're in this little enclave where we just affirm each other and don't bother each other with variance. Now, I call that living in an intellectual ghetto. To my way of thinking, we're all the better to be exposed with variance, with spirited disagreement, and women and men learning how to be friends, differences aside. How's that for something that's novel? And I think, by the way, that's part of the beauty of community. I think a religious community, well, Jeffrey, you know, you're a religious leader. You shouldn't talk about what's really happening in the world. Just be otherworldly. No, that's obnoxious to me personally. And even in a religious community, it's characterized by variance. There's the rich, the poor, different ethnicities, different backgrounds, different perspective, different life histories, people coming together. There's going to be some disequilibrium. You just don't find a perfect world because there's all kinds of variance in the world. And it seems to me that we're the better if we learn to be accepting of that and not live in an intellectual ghetto where all we do is make space for people to think just like us. To me, that's really problematic. I call it intellectual incest. That is to say, we can only make love to people of our own tribe. We can't hear from others. I think it's important, by the way, to not only hear variant perspective, and by the way, if in the name of religion, you're not allowed to stand up and express variance, then Karl Marx was right when he said that religion is the opiate of the masses. His point being that it just dulls your sensibilities. You're not really engaging in the land of the living. You're inclined just to check out. No, I think we should check in. And now I've long thought of it, by the way, as a Bible college and seminary professor. And this really is one of my pet peeves. A lot of times, if you look at religious education, higher education, there's institutions that have a certain narrow band of dogma, and it's required that all the professors subscribe to that perspective. And then people come to the school to get kind of shoehorned into that way of thinking. And it's called higher education. I don't know. I mean, I can understand having core values, but as if this band of theologians are gatekeepers to reality and every other perspective is excluded. I think, by the way, when someone comes to university, that's where they should go to hear the great debates. They should be able to hear individuals with variant perspective, and they're all big boys and girls. They can make up their own mind, but it's important to open the mind and be willing to hear from interlocutors, even if they don't comport with our sensibilities 100%. We do well to learn to be respectful. We do well to learn to listen and see not only how might we affect the conversation by sharing our perspective, but how we can be affected by it ourselves by learning and growing, by being in conversation with others. And all this requires developing an aptitude to open oneself up. And, I say this because if you look at what's happening in our world, it's going to be a long 4 years. We have a president right now, and you've already heard me to say, at the end of the day, I thought Joe Biden was somewhat hazy, and I thought Donald Trump was somewhat crazy. I just think crazy is better for our culture. And let's see how it all turns out. But there's going to be sound bites and jumping around left and right. And I'm not going to abide a perspective that says, Jeffrey, everyone else can talk about this stuff, but you can't. Now, as a congregational leader, I'm much less inclined. But I do think, by the way, much as a university needs to be a place where people can come and hear the great debates, I think in congregations as well, individuals need to be able to wrestle with the issues of the day. And the thing with that is just to be gentlemanly in the process, to be cordial, to be willing to listen and learn, and even admit that perhaps you've made a mistake in the way you perceived a person or an issue. Augustine, at the end of his life, wrote a book called Retractions. It's interesting, by the way. As he aged, there are certain things that he said that he realized through time and circumstance that he's had to adjust his position some. And I think if we're just honest, all of us are like that at the end of the day. We're just works in progress. But we're engaged in tikkun olam, to heal the world. We want to make a difference in this world. There's lots of problems in this world. We want to be part of the cure. And we have different ideas about what that cure looks like. What's the way forward? And that's why, by the way, the beauty of it is, even people that differ, there's beauty in the variance. No, Donald Trump is crazy because of this, that. No, Donald Trump is saintly because of this, that. On both sides of the equation, God bless, people really care about finding their way to a better world. All are cognizant of the fact there's problems in it. The question is, what's the best way forward? And to me, the beauty, what makes America great, or what makes America great again, isn't a particular person or particular political persuasion. What really makes us great is that every few years we have the opportunity to look at what's happening and recalibrate and decide who's going to lead us into the future. It's the beauty of a democracy. And at the end of the day, Like it or not, um, the Republican Party held the day for a variety of reasons, and Donald Trump is the one who is spearheading that endeavor. All that came legitimately. Now, certainly he can be, subjected to critique, but let's ramp down the rhetoric. Let's pray for our leaders, even when another party and another perspective was in power. I didn't rage out of the cage every time I opened my mouth. You want to be polite. When I look at biblical literature, we're beckoned to be respectful toward secular authorities, by the way. And I got news for you. You want to read the book of Romans. My wife did a doctoral dissertation in Romans. You don't need to be a doctor in Romans. Therein, Paul beckons us to be subjected to authorities and live peaceably among men under those authorities. And those authorities were a lot worse than what we have right now. I got news for you. And if religious virtue beckons the believer to be respectful in that context, certainly we do well to have respectful discourse and respectful nature in our current milieu, to my way of thinking. So I wanted to come out of the gate here. I have done some deciphering the world, and good friends chewed on me behind the scenes, and that's okay. I don't, if you feel you need to chew on me for this one, feel free to write me. It's all good. I'm honestly not mad, and I can learn and grow. But I want you to hear me on this. What this is, in my deciphering piece, is a call for a kind of tolerance for an appreciation for variance, for an understanding that just because someone doesn't think the way that you do doesn't mean they're bad, and that their voice should be banished and excluded from the land of the living. That we want to develop the aptitude to hear and love and listen and learn. There's my screed for my little piece, Deciphering Our World, Jeffrey Seif. God bless. Look forward to hearing from you. Ciao.